seemed fitting to wear the shirt today. I can't believe they did it. They re-signed Reilly Smith. There is so much to go over with this, and I need to do it chronologically to give context to everything. So that way in like 5 years, or like 10 or 15 when my kids find this channel and they're older and understand all this and look back and I'm like, that's weird, and then know how everything played out, you know? I want to give it context so that people understand what was going on at the time that this happened, because you can manipulate stats and context, I guess, to paint whatever story you want and whatever narrative fits you. Like for example, signing a point per game, 40 goal scoring center at 34, to a 4-year, $4.38 million deal is a hometown discount, whereas signing a top 4 defenseman, physical, varied playing, to a 8-year, 6.1 is, tax based. Makes no sense. Whatever fits the narrative, right? And so the reason that I want to add context to all this is because it helps make it to where the narrative can't be swayed one way or the other, because Marner for Waugh, 1-for-1, terrible deal. Fired Toronto's entire front office. Giving Marner, who wasn't returning, getting anything for him after he had a full new move clause is great work from Bradshaw Living. And did they blackmail Vegas into making this move? Kind of. Yeah, it seems so. And Steve Dangle agrees with me, so like Leafs fans don't argue that point. Hi, my name is Tyler. I'm a huge hockey fan and Vegas Golden Knights fan. I have been since birth. I've been a hockey fan since I was a toddler. Fan of the NHL specifically since 2009, and fan of the Vegas Golden Knights since their inception, since they were announced. I remember I was in Vancouver at the time, but I was born and raised in Vegas, and I was coming back home. And the reason I'm saying all this is because I'm sure there's new people watching this video, and I'm not just some bandwagon. Like, I guess technically I jumped onto the Vegas bandwagon when they were gonna be bottom of the barrel. It'll be a miracle if they don't finish last, end up going to the Stanley Cup final. Vegas Golden Knights, that revisionist history dictates that had just cheated their way there, and like the expansion draft was ridiculously good for them, and of course they did, even though no one had them making the playoffs. Anyway, the reason I'm saying all this is because Mitch Marner is a Vegas Golden Knight, and getting to that point was a whirlwind of emotions, and let's change of scenery. My Reilly Smith jersey is a Bruins jersey. Sorry, Toronto fans. I want a jersey for every team. I love jerseys. My Toronto jersey is coming up, although I'm getting a new one, I guess. But Reilly Smith re-signed with the Vegas Golden Knights, and this is a team-friendly deal because he's a half-point per game winger, middle six winger that has, he's older, but 1 year, $2 million no trade clause is a great deal for him. And I'm really happy that we have him back, him with Wild Bill. It's just, to have him at that cap hit is great, better than what I could have pictured. The only thing that could have made it better is longer term, more years on that, but is what it is. I'll take it. And then Brandon Saad with an identical 1 year, $2 million no trade clause contract. That is the main reason that the Reilly Smith contract, I haven't talked about it yet, is because I was gonna make a video. I saw Brandon Saad sign a contract. I was waiting to see what the cap hit was gonna be. And then a bunch of news just kept coming down the fire hydrant, and I'm trying to absorb it all. And now I'm looking at this video and making it and just thinking, oh my goodness, how on earth am I supposed to cover all of this in such a short time span? That's not gonna take me forever to edit, but it is what it is. And I enjoy this, it's fun. Reilly Smith became our 10th forward signed to the forward core. And unless we were gonna start putting rookies in the lineup, we were gonna need to sign 2 more forwards. And we technically, to have a 20-man roster, which is the minimum that you need, you'd probably want 22, 23 to have healthy scratches that you can just sub in for like injuries or conditioning or whatever. But Vegas had 10 forwards at this point. Signing Reilly Smith and then Brandon Saad made us to 11. So we needed 1 more forward to have a 20-man roster. And that is under the assumption that Alex Pietrangelo, we didn't know if that was up in the air, so I was counting him. But then Hague still needed a contract because he's an RFA. Brandon Saad fit well with Vegas, and his contract hit, you know, I'm not going to complain. And at this point, I was thinking, what is Vegas going to do to improve going into next season? Because we were a good team, we finished top of the Pacific, but we were out in convincing fashion in 5, and I'm going to say that the Oilers played better, but also Vegas was injured clearly and are arguably number 1 defenseman. It's a rotating cast between the top 3, and that was a privilege that Vegas Golden Knights had, was having Shea Theodore, Noah Hannafin, and Alex Pietrangelo, all at reasonable cap hits. We were entering these last 2 years of Petro's cap hit being 8.8, and that was a lot for what he was doing. He was clearly slowing down, and now we know why, but I'm still getting ahead of myself because we're not even there yet. We knew that the rumor was that Vegas was getting Mitch Marner, but it didn't work unless the rumor about Petro and LTIR was true, and also us trading Waugh became the rumor. Except the rumor started that Toronto was complaining to the league about Vegas tampering, which is something that just happens in the NHL. It's technically illegal. It's like texting and driving in at least the state of Georgia that I live in right now. It's illegal to do it, but I see so many different people do it. Tampering. It's been going on for years, and it doesn't ever get called out or punished. And apparently the league was looking at making an example of someone so that it cracks down on this, even though it's so weird because the teams can give permission for RFAs or whatever to talk to other clubs, but if they didn't receive that permission, it's tampering. And Toronto's been trying to trade Marner to Vegas for over a year now, and they were initially trying to get Theodore as the return, which, yeah, if I'm Toronto, heck yeah, I want that, but if I'm Vegas, why on earth would I do that? And Marner has a no-move clause that he exercised in good faith. He could have waived his no-move clause to go to Vegas at the trade deadline, but he didn't want to do it for Carolina, Mikko Rantanen 1-for-1, which would have been a heck of a deal for both teams, honestly. But the reason he didn't want to do that, and I don't know why he would have waived for Vegas, but not for Carolina, which is why maybe there was tampering, but like everyone, there's so many different thoughts with this, is that his wife was pregnant and just about to give birth. And as someone who was in the process of moving and all that jazz with a newborn, it sucks that he didn't want to, and he would have had to change countries. Yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to do that either. And that would have been a horrible situation for him to be in. He got that no move clause in good faith, and you know, before it was kicked in, Kyle Dubas was going to move off from, it was allegedly Mitch, because he was talking about breaking up the core 4, and then he got fired hours later. And Steve Dangle does a really good job from the Toronto Maple Leafs fan perspective of being able to be accurate with that information that was there, because of course it's readily available to him, just like the Vegas information is readily available in my head. I'm slowing down now because I get worked up about all this. Anyway, I'm also not feeling good. So this is gonna be all over the place. But because of the alleged tampering, it seemed like Brad Treliving was trying to blackmail Vegas into, okay, but if we sign and trade him to you, you won't be accused of it, and they're not gonna look into it. So give us something so that, you know, we're not gonna report you to the league. And first off, the last thing I would want to do is make Kelly McCrimmon pissed at my franchise. Because the Vegas front office is always going for it, and a lot of people in the hockey community respect them for it. But you know what gets the most engagement, most clicks, most likes? Absolutely blasting and hating on them and calling them cheaters, even though they have not cheated. Other than tampering that everyone does, other than LTIR, which everyone uses, the things that have happened for the Vegas franchise, I'm not gonna say I'm not spoiled. I'm not gonna say that Vegas fans are not spoiled, that it has not been fortuitous of all of these different things happening in their favor regarding to injuries and different aspects of all of these things. Vegas coming in as a franchise now versus 20 years ago and having to be perpetually bad like the Blue Jackets and the Wild have been. It is definitely been it's an advantage. And I'm not saying that taxes aren't an advantage, but so is being a Toronto Maple Leaf with one of the best staff and the endorsement deals and how much money they can make from that. Like, there are so many different advantages based on any other team you go to. So just harping on the tax-free income tax states does not make sense to me, because whatever franchise you go to, there are advantages. And it's not as big of a deal as far as, because you get paid based on where you're playing the game. So the home pay is definitely where it's most different, and they play most of the games there, so it is a little bit different, but not to the point where it's considerably different. It's being way blown out of proportion. Anyway, we get to this morning. So much has happened today. Oh my goodness. Vegas makes another trade, so I'm gonna switch around. The Vegas Golden Knights traded last night. It was midnight my time, so technically the next day. Nick Hague to the Nashville Predators for Jeremy Lauzon, a defenseman, a defensive defenseman, who got injured at the end of December and did not play the rest of the year, and Colton Sissons, who had a very down year but is a veteran bottom six center. And I was extremely confused by this. I found out later after I woke up that we gave up a conditional third round 2027 pick, which Nashville retained 50% of Sissons' salary, which, you know, makes sense. But I'm thinking, why did we? I feel like I would have rather gotten draft picks. And if Nick Hague was an RFA, so if some other team had sent him a offer sheet to try to take him, if it was anything below 2.3, Vegas matches that, right? If it's anything above that, they got minimum a second round pick, and then the next level, which the level he got signed at for 4 years at 5.5 million, would have been a first and a third that Vegas would be getting in return for offer sheeting Nick Hague. And I'm not saying that Lauzon and Sissons are bad, but Nashville in general was bad last year. And acquiring them in their last year of their deals with taking in, I think it ended up being like $3 million in cap space, like we're acquiring $3 million in cap, and having to pay a third that will become a second if Vegas wins 2 rounds next year, it did not make sense to me. And I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that Lauzon is a formidable bottom pair D-man who plays beside, I'm thinking it's gonna still be White Cloud, because I think Korczak might just be the D partner with Hanifin, or I don't know what Vegas is doing with their D pairs yet. And then that Sissons is replacing Waugh, with Vegas getting Marner, which makes sense if that all is happening. I would rather keep Waugh, but honestly getting Marner for that 8th year makes a difference, because I'm getting ahead of myself. First off, before I move on, Nick Hague, Stanley Cup champion, our 2017 second round pick. He was picked 34th, which would mean in a couple of years, when the league expands to 34 teams, that would be a first round pick. It's insane. And you know, he's 6'6", the giraffe, had won the Stanley Cup. He had that moment with a thumbs up against Dallas that I loved. He had a Hager bomb in overtime against Nashville on New Year's Eve in 2022 that I saw live in person, and it's one of the few games that I've seen in person of the Vegas Golden Knights. And I loved that moment, seeing an overtime victory. It was on a delayed penalty, and Vegas blew a third period lead, I think it was 2 goals, and allowed a Philip Forsberg hat trick en route to that game happening. But we won, and seeing that in person was fantastic. One of my favorite moments, because it was a date with my wife after, it was our first date 2 weeks after we gave birth. She gave birth to our daughter, our older daughter. I have 3 kids now. So congrats to Nick Hague. I really wish him the best of luck. 5.5 million for who has only been a bottom pair defenseman in his career is steep, but I think he's capable of becoming a top 4, probably not top pair, but middle pair defenseman that is able to do big things. Commit some dumb penalties sometimes, but I love Nick Hague. Probably who's going on the back of this jersey. Anyway, then it's announced that Mitch Marner is being traded to Vegas, like 12 hours later, and I've been trying to get an update on this for like a day and a half, and I'm like losing my mind a little bit, because you know, it gets announced, all this stuff on Saturday, and then today it's finally, waiting for an update, and I was getting anxiety. Another change is needed. I'm not doing this to show off my jerseys. No, of course, why would I do that? Vegas is acquiring Mitch Marner, and it's a sign-in trade, so he will be making $12 million per year for the next 8 years, which the reason that you do a sign-in trade before July 1st is because under the still current CBA, if you're with your parent, your club that has your rights, you can sign an 8th year. And if you go 1 year less, it's a 7-year if he makes it to July 1st. And in order for Vegas to get him at the cap hit that he's at, it needed to be before July 1st. And so it makes more sense for Vegas to do this now instead of waiting for tomorrow, because it's not as simple as you just take 12 million off and so it keeps the same cap hit and he just makes less. No, he's about to sign a $96 million contract, and according to the way that athletes and agents do this, that's how they do it. With Zach Hyman, Toronto lost him for nothing, right? And Edmonton was willing to give him a 6th round pick, which Dubas took as a slap in the face because it would be saving the Edmonton Oilers like a little less than $1 million per season for his cap hit, because his contract number, the amount that he was going to make, would be the same, but it would have allowed them to give him an extra year, which would lower the AAV, the average annual value, which is what counts towards the cap hit with the hard salary cap and all of this cap stuff that I'm at least somewhat competent in understanding. I'm just a fan, I'm not an analyst, although I like have worked in hockey too. So like it's fun anyway. So Vegas is acquiring Toronto's Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner signed it with Toronto, which is why Vegas got an 8th year, brought the cap hit down to 12 instead of being like 13.7. So yeah, it's a huge difference in the cap hit, and we gave up Nick Waugh for it, which we were gonna have to do anyway if we wanted to sign Marner. And Vegas, I love being a Vegas Golden. It's never a dull moment. I am exhausted though, for multiple reasons. One, the amount of people that claim that Vegas cheats, even though they're doing exactly what every other franchise is capable of doing. Two, Kelly McCrimmon is an absolute madman who makes moves like this, like he's playing franchise mode. This is what we as fans do all the time. And you're mad at Vegas and Vegas fans for this being the case. I know I'm spoiled, and I never have a dull offseason or trade deadline. It's fantastic being a Vegas Golden Knights fan so far in the last 8 years of existence. I'm also tired for another thing that I'm going to bring up, because we're going to talk about Petro after this, but Mitch Marner, welcome to Las Vegas. Jeremy Lauzon and Colton Sissons, welcome to Las Vegas. It's a great city. I love living there. I don't live there anymore, but oh, now I'm craving some like authentic Mexican food. Oh man, I miss it so much. We are so we've gone after the big fish almost every year. We got Jack Eichel, we got Mark Stone, we got Max Pacioretty, we got Paul Stastny, and it's just been acquire, and trade. We got Petro, Hannafin, Hurdle. Tomas Tatar was a good get, and then it just didn't gel. And giving up Nick Suzuki, you know, yikes. But also, like, it just, Vegas is Vegas, and the league is more entertaining because of all the stuff that Vegas does. And unfortunately, they just get crapped on for it all the time. Loyalty is constantly in question, including within the fan base. I'm not trying to say it's all just other people. Like people in our own fan base also question loyalty and stuff, even though what they're doing is trying to win. And we want to win. Every fan's goal should be their team winning the Stanley Cup, right? That's what it's all about. And getting rid of players, Vegas has a really good track record of getting rid of players at the right time. Fleury still had a bunch of good years left, but at his cap hit, we were not going to be able to do it. And Chicago was able to eat it and retain it and send them back to Minnesota. And sure, they burn bridges sometimes in the process, but every player that they've moved on from who has been serviceable since has not hit the peaks that they hit in Vegas since either. Pacioretty, Stastny, Howla, who we got Nick Waugh for. And there were serious questions coming in about what Vegas was going to do, because Mark Stone is up, Petro's contract's going to be up, and Eichel's contract's up. We need to sign him to an extension tomorrow, please. All of these different like contract things were up, and Vegas's window was like, you could see where the door might be. But now, because we re-signed Mitch Marner to this, and it basically keeps our elite winger open, like slot open, it slams that door back completely wide open. So we are still contending through. And a lot of people are going to complain about Marner and how he disappears in the playoffs. Vegas fans replying back with his in general amount of points in the playoffs and his point per game in the playoffs is a little bit misleading, because what Toronto fans specifically have been complaining about have been his performances in games 5, 6, and 7, which is a valid point. But the difference is, and I'm not going to say media, I'm not going to say pressure from fans, Vegas is not cursed. Cursed with success, maybe. And I'm not diving into the interpretation on that, because one Stanley Cup in 8 years, that's so success. No, that's not what I'm saying. But they have been constant contenders, you know? And they have had a reputation of scoring drying up in the playoffs. They had it last year against the Edmonton Oilers. They had it the Pete DeBoer era in general. Every year except for the year that they won the Cup, really. But there's something about the locker room and the way that it meshes, and how we have players that have been there, that have won it. And they're not just background, fourth line, third pair guys, they're leaders. We had Petro, who was the captain of the Blues when they won the Stanley Cup, and he was a huge leader in that locker room that led us to winning the 2023 Stanley Cup. Barbashev won the Cup as a decent role player. We had Jonathan Quick in that locker room. We had Alec Martinez. A bunch of the players on Vegas that have won the Cup now, because a large portion of them are still there, know what it takes to get it done. It hurts to win, right? And they're going to be able to teach Marner that, and it's not going to be all on the core four, really, because there is no core four in Vegas. Toronto, if you're looking to blame anyone, blame Mitch's agency and maybe his dad, from what I've seen, and also Brandon Shanahan. Don't blame Mitch. The heel turn in the last 4 days alone against Mitch, and the amount of people that have like, well, you can change your mind that quickly, dude. Oh my goodness. And have made Mitch the complete villain in Toronto is just abhorrent. It's completely different than the John Tavares in New York situation. It's different than Eichel in Buffalo even. Mitch Marner worked his butt off for Toronto, and it's his job, and he gets paid a lot to do it, and it's a game and whatnot, whatever. But like, I don't know if he enjoys it as much anymore. And yeah, there's also the argument of, you know, why wouldn't he accept a trade elsewhere when it was obvious after this year? Maybe he believed in the group being able to get it done this year, and Toronto was his hometown team. And it is obvious that the front office was going to move on from him, and if his own team didn't want him, then why would he want to stay? If his fan base turned heel on him, why would he want to stay? If he believed in his team to be able to get it done this year, and they were able to get it done, then they would want him to stay. Then he would have stayed. If Toronto would have won this year, I believe wholeheartedly that Mitch Marner stays a Toronto Maple Leaf. But it didn't happen, and you can blame him for not being able to contribute the way that he might have needed to in games 5, 6, and 7, although I don't know how you blame Mitch for games 5 and 7 when that was a completely team collapse. And yeah, he's a team leader or whatever, but he was able to perform on the stage for Canada in the Four Nations tournament. The same thing was said about Eichel. Eichel had never been to the playoffs though, and so he was an enigma when it came to the playoffs. Mitch Marner has been there, and we have seen what he's been able to do. I just think that his game is going to be different in Vegas, and everyone seems to. The Steve Dangle podcast has repeatedly said, of course he's gonna, win a cup somewhere. He could probably win the Conn Smythe, and I hope he does, because that means Vegas won the Stanley Cup, right? But anyway, this is a huge, long-winded response. I am super excited. I am so tired. I need a break this off season from just the anxiety of not knowing what's going on. It's not even July 1st yet. Well, it is for me in 15 minutes, and yet Vegas' roster seems to be completely figured out, because even though we're technically, I don't even know if we have him on the books yet. Nick Waugh, Stanley Cup champion, has Toronto, you're gonna love him. He's hardworking, he has flashes of skill, he can play anywhere in the forward lineup. He at times had to be, playing first line center for us because of all the injuries that we've had in our history, which, y'all should be familiar with. Being able to make fun of it all the time. They're legitimate injuries. Anyway, Nick Waugh he's very dependable in his bottom six center winger role. And so that's what you guys want, right? And he's big. And yeah, Nick Waugh, I'm going to miss him. Stanley Cup champion. I love his shootout move. I can see it like a highlight in my mind. I can just physically watch him perform that shootout move where he just fakes the shot, turns, backhand, roofs. And, it's fantastic. I'm really excited for him to be able to have potentially a bigger role in Toronto because the centers he was behind, Eichel, Hurdle, Carlson, yeah, he really, the last couple of years, didn't have much opportunity to show that he should have a higher role, and he's going to get that in Toronto, so good for him. Playing behind Matthews and Tavares. And who knows? He's Toronto. Now, I don't need to speculate on it as much. That confirms what Vegas released a statement on later today, and people, okay, another change. It's a Blues jersey, so excuse the wrong number, but I'm gonna put it on. It was evident to me that he was losing a step, which could be because of his age, but as a defenseman, it wasn't just his foot speed, although that was a huge part of it. But now we know why. His hips are completely done. He's probably 99.9% retired. And the reason that they can't straight up announce that, even though they announced pretty much everything else and all the reasons that should on paper be why he retires, is because he would forfeit the last 2 years of the $8.8 million which he signed and is owed, quite frankly, because he worked for it and he earned it and all this jazz, and that's what his contract is for. But if he retires, he forgoes that, and if he just goes on to LTIR, then he'll be able to still get that paid out because it's covered by insurance and stuff, which is why it wouldn't be paid out by Vegas. It doesn't count towards their cap, etc. That's what LTIR is used for, right? Right? But because it's Vegas, no one cares, and they're making all these jokes about how, oh yeah, he's just gonna be ready for game one and all this jazz or whatever. But dude, none of you watched him play. None of you watched every game he played. He was obviously dealing with something. He could have, to me, it was he's losing a step and he's dealing with something. But now, his hips are done. He's gonna need bilateral femur reconstruction. The femur is the biggest bone in the body. It's the giant one in your upper leg, and needing the hip completely restructured around it, no guaranteed success probability, even with all the modern advancements in medicine. And it's for him to be able to have a normal life, not a normal hockey career again, a normal life with his 4 kids. That the things that he's had to deal with since coming to Vegas, it's been insane. I feel so bad for Petro, because not only is his franchise that he literally put his entire body and healthy lifestyle on the line for trying to win again with the Stanley Cup this year. The amount of jokes that are made about his career and he's getting paid millions to get over it, whatever. I'm just sick of reading it. It's exhausting. The amount of discourse around LTIR and how it gets the most interaction, even though it's not even true, because they don't watch. They don't pay attention. They don't make informed jokes at all. They just, oh yeah, LTIR, it is extremely fortuitous timing, and I understand the fans' abrasion towards the potential for this being what has happened in the past. But the problem is they'll just point, oh yeah, it's convenient that this happens at the right time, and it's convenient that this happened. It's fortuitous, as I said earlier, that this happened at this time for us to be able to re-sign Mitch Marner. But if it had happened next year, we would have just signed Connor McDavid or whatever big name free agent was up on next year. If it happened last year, we would have signed a big name free agent last year. It is what it is. Alex Pietrangelo, the 2-time Stanley Cup champion, captained the Blues to their cup, was a huge leader and reason of why Vegas won their cup. And his number might not be retired with Vegas. According to Danny Webster, Kelly McCrimmon said the hope in February with Petro withdrawing from the Four Nations was that the treatment and rest would help, but instead what we found were diminished positive results in a process that is no longer sustainable moving forward. There was a huge announcement that said that these past few years have been very challenging on his physical well-being. He's in a difficult position with his overall health, and exploring options with doctors and family has been advised to retire essentially. But because of, you know, LTIR and earning the money that he's owed for his contract, he can't say that. You know, he can't retire. This is, I really, like, I'm praying for this man and his family, that he's able to have a normal life with his kids and be able to run around and interact with them and teach them hockey and all this jazz, because as a dad of 3, like, I couldn't imagine not being able to do that with my kids, and I'm not, like, it's whatever. But I really just hope he's able to have a normal life after this, and it would be a gosh darn miracle if he's able to return game 1 of the playoffs. Instead of, you know, laughing or dunking or thinking it's fake, like, praise Jesus. I don't know. Whatever you would do for a miracle, like, that's what you got to do if that ends up happening. And in my opinion, which who knows, you know, I can't predict the future, it's not happening. And that's the overall vibe, and the amount of people that are still making jokes about it, it's just in not good taste. I genuinely dislike it, but whatever. And this is where I'm gonna turn towards being a Vegas fan. Because why not? It's Vegas now has 3 of the top 5 picks from the 2015 NHL entry draft. They have pick number 2 in Jack Eichel, pick number 4 in Mitch Marner, and pick number 5 in Noah Hanifin. They're missing 2. And they could have one next offseason. Who knows? There's the Mitch Marner was a London night, so once a night, always a night. And then there's also, this is more me being giddy about my excitement for my team next year, rather than, I don't like dunking on other teams and other fan bases unless they're asking for it, you know? Like, I'm not dunking on Sabres fans, but Sabres front office, they've been asking for everything that they've gotten so far, right? The entire point behind all of this, Vegas is interesting. We are lucky to have them in the league as a hockey fan. And as a Vegas fan, I am so spoiled by this front office. Every Vegas Golden Knight fan is so spoiled by this front office, and we need to love it. And I know a lot of people were kind of hesitant about Mitch Marner and all that stuff, but we've got him for the next 8 years. Your options are to, I guess, become a casual and not really take a rooting interest in the team, refuse to talk about him, or to try to support our player. Besides, if he doesn't end up performing, even with a no move clause, Vegas will just get rid of him. Because that's what they do with every player that doesn't end up performing to the way that they like. And like it or not, that's how Vegas operates, because they want to win constantly. And hopefully, we're going to be able to have more Stanley Cups to show for it. But last couple of things before this long video is over. The Vegas Golden Knights offered qualifying offers to RFAs Lucas Cormier, Alexander Holtz, Raphael Lavoie, Jonas Romberg, and Cole Schwindt, which was all expected and understandable. We didn't re-sign Tanner Pearson or Victor Olofsson, so I don't know if we're going to be able to bring them back reasonably. And we're probably going to be able to get out of those 5 RFAs a couple of them to return, which means our lineup will fill out. But as of right now, they still don't have the Mitch Marner contract sent over, because I guess it hasn't gone through. So who knows? He technically has a no move clause with Toronto, I'm assuming, which means he could just be like, no, I'm staying in Toronto, guys. That would be funny. That would be so funny. As a Vegas fan, I wouldn't even care. That would be so funny. We have 12 forwards. Colton Sissons. So we have a full roster group with Colton Sissons joining and Brandon Saad and Reilly Smith's contract extensions. $2.186 million in cap space if we take the 1-for-1 trade, which means, who knows, maybe we gave up a draft pick or something, or got a draft. I highly doubt that, but it's possible. If we give up the $3 million from Nick Waugh and subtract the 8.8 from Alex Petrangelo's LTIRetired contract, it would give Vegas about $14 million in cap space. And if you take off the $12 million average annual value for Marner, that leaves us with a little less than $2 million for a couple of roster spots with still 12 forwards and 7 defensemen. So if you add in a 2 like league min-ish players to account for a 23-man roster, that is to the cap, to the maximum of the salary cap. And that's very tidy work. Numbers reported for Mitch Marner were up to 14 million or more from other teams that weren't as contending as Vegas is, and getting an 8th year and at that cap hit is great work from Vegas. Honestly, I was kind of dreading making this video because there was so much to talk about, and I'm dreading editing this, to be honest, because there's so much to talk about and all this jazz, but I really am excited. It's my favorite mode in the hockey video games is franchise mode, and doing whatever I want to do in the off season, and then playing that first game with that roster, and then simming the rest until the next off season. And it's just so much fun. And that's what Vegas is like. It's like that. And that's great entertainment, peak value. Personally, I would have Marner instead of with Eichel, with Hertl and Dorofeev, and keep Eichel with Stone and Barbashev, and have that line. Hopefully Barbashev's able to, go back to where he was 2 years ago, but that's a really solid roster group with Saad, Carlson, Smith, and then Howden, Sissons, and Kolazar as our 12-man forward group. That's great. Defensively, we're gonna see what's up with there, because Lauzon, White Cloud, probably for that bottom pair defenseman with defensive pair with, and then adjust the 4 as needed. But Theodore and Korzak on the right, and then Hannafin and McNabb on the left. That's solid. That especially in Bruce Cassidy's system, that's going to be solid, and hopefully can lead to better statistics from Adin Hill. But that's what Vegas. I don't know what they're going to do tomorrow. Tomorrow is supposed to be the big day that everyone goes, but like a ton of stuff happened today. And so, who knows? Happy Canada Day. And I'll probably have to update tomorrow. We'll see. I don't know. But that's going to be it for today's Nightly Review. We signed Mitch Marner. We actually did it. And we still have Reilly Smith. The best thing would be to extend Eichel, and then I would be so happy with this offseason. But that's going to be it for today's Nightly Review. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good